What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the number one fantasy sports podcast here, in giving you all of your sports fixes during this terrible quarantine. Episode 5 here of the Stars and Scrubs podcast, powered by Sharp Sports Network. Joe here alongside Walker. We are the two masterminds behind Sharp Sports Network that give the best touted advice for fantasy sports. Here to break down two things for you here in the NFL world. One that happened about 2 days ago, I think, and the other one happened probably about a month ago. We're going to go ahead and jump into that. But before we do, we did do a Guess Who in the last episode. Broke it down. I believe he was a wrestler in high school, was at the University of Illinois, and had multiple 20-plus assist games. That person was Darren Williams, point guard of the Brooklyn Nets. And the winner that was chosen based on all the comments that we received is Mr. Glide. Glide, if you want to go ahead and shoot us a DM on Twitter at SharpSportsNet on Twitter, or either one of me or Walker's Twitters, we will go ahead and get you your $50 prize. Very happy to see the big turnout here on these Guess Who's and get a lot of traction on them. So, yeah, let's jump into this. Let's just fucking do it. DeAndre Hopkins here getting signed by the Cardinals. We talked about him a little bit on one of the episodes. I popped a screen up on him. Him and Kyler Murray here. He looks really weird in a Cardinals uniform. But we touched a little bit on, I believe, in episode 1 or 2. We were talking about a bunch of like Deshaun Watson stuff, losing Hopkins. And this is just one that I'm really interested to see because I have a very interesting take on it. For me, trading for Hopkins was a great thing for them. Christian Kirk just wasn't doing it. Larry Fitzgerald has glass knees now. This has to be his last year. Hasn't been good the past few years, to be honest. From a fantasy point perspective, I think this puts Kyler Murray in a top 5 quarterback race this year. As far as fantasy production and as far as touchdowns thrown, I would assume. I actually probably project him in the top 3. I think he puts up somewhat of a Mahomes season as far as touchdowns thrown, especially getting one of those big weapons and being able to use his legs as well. What are your thoughts on this big guy? Because I think that this kind of puts them in a better playoff race than last year for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a wild card potential there. It's a really, really stacked division, obviously. But I do think this is really interesting. I like the way that they're trying to build around the young quarterback, Kyler Murray. Obviously, they ran more 4 wide receiver sets last year, I think, than any other team combined. They were just consistently spreading out the offense for him. And obviously, Kyler Murray, being young, being mobile, he does have a ton of upside. I'm with you on that. He's definitely somebody I'm going to be trying to steal in a lot of season-long fantasy leagues. And then, of course, DFS-wise, like week 1, week 2, obviously matchup depending. It's going to be very interesting what price he's going to come in at because I'm going to be all over the stacks that we're going to get with him and D-Hop. But with this trade, though, it's very interesting. I mean, at first, and even still, I mean, you just got to think the Texans are losing, in this scenario here. David Johnson, yeah, maybe he was something really special a few years back. I think 2017 was his top fantasy performer year. Regardless of that, so they have David Johnson now. They have Brandon Cooks. They got a 2nd-round pick in this draft, and they gave up DeAndre Hopkins, a 2nd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. So you're telling me D-Hop and a 4th-round pick is equivalent to David Johnson and Brandon Cooks? I think that's arguable, not due to talent, but due to health. Cooks, obviously, with the concussion issues. We touched on that in a previous video. And then David Johnson with the injuries he's had just kind of off and on.
Season-ending injuries in Arizona kind of plagued his whole career. I mean, for me, I'm going to say that the Cardinals easily make the playoffs. I feel like they have a winning record this year. I think Kyler Murray boasts a 35-plus touchdown throwing season here. I think this is he's poised for a good season after it. I wouldn't have put him at that great of a rookie season, just personally. Yeah. But my hot take is that Kyler Murray's gonna be in the top 3 quarterback this year. I think that it's gonna be weird on weekends when we have the Chiefs playing, or when we have the Rams playing, and or maybe the Falcons. That Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Price. Of the duo, the Mahomes and Tyreek Hill or Kelsey, and then now you add Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, is really, I think, going to spread out some ownership as far as NFL players go this year on a main slate with the pairings, because obviously you want to pair a quarterback with this wide receiver 1. I think this is really going to be an interesting year for DFS because trying to pinpoint what pairing is going to be the best when you have weapons spread out amongst a bunch of teams is going to be quite interesting to see. But yeah, my hot take, I don't think anybody can prove me wrong either that Kyler Murray is going to be at least a top 5 quarterback this year. I'm on a 35 plus touchdown season as well.
Yeah, I would sit right around the top 5, top 6 fantasy performing quarterbacks this year for Kyler. I'm really high on him. I think it's going to be a really interesting thing, like you said there, with the kind of scattered ownership. I don't think that it's going to be something that it's slowly been decreasing in relevance in terms of just looking at ownership projections when making lineups and taking that into account. It's slowly gotten less and less valuable to me. I just stopped caring about who everybody else is on, kind of making the best plays, and it's definitely paid off. And you get some leverage by doing that, but at this point, it's going to be especially early on, like week 1, week 2 of the NFL season. It's always all over the place. So it's definitely interesting to see. And the thing that I like is that you can play Kyler, D Hop, and you could stack him with Kirk or another one of his targets there. So
maybe.
it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun to watch because the Cardinals were a team that we targeted against a lot, especially with like tight ends. Last year they were awful defensively.
Oh my God,
So
T.J. Hawkinson.
yeah, I mean,
one game wonder.
it's gonna be fun to watch. I think this is a very good move for the Cardinals. Bad move for the Texans. It's kind of like, in my opinion, I would put that similar to letting Tom Brady leave New England. You're letting the only person who has consistently stayed there and put up performances through multiple shitty quarterbacks. Yes, Deshaun Watson is a shitty quarterback. I won't be told otherwise. Shake your head all you want. But yeah, I think this is a great spot for the Cardinals to really just do their thing, and I think this is a playoff race for them for sure. I think they make the playoffs this year easily.
I'm excited to play him just in DFS. It's going to be exciting to see the price tags, the just the stack, stacking the Cardinals. Such a volatile team defensively. I mean, you're going to be able to make such an insane game stack. You're going to have 42 to 30, 38 type games this year from them. So it's going to be really fun to play.
The Cardinals since what? Carson Palmer?
Yeah, since 08 when they played the Steelers.
Kurt Warner. So yeah, let's jump into this next one. This one I'm more excited to talk about. I think this is a great. I have an interesting take about this. Christian McCaffrey just got a contract extension with the Panthers, 4-year extension, $16 million per year. It's like a $60-ish million contract. How do you feel about that? Because I think that it's a terrible move on Christian McCaffrey's part. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to carry this team to be some sort of a playoff team. And I don't want to see Christian McCaffrey. There's 2 ways this goes. He ruins his career because
you don't want him to die there.
Yeah, I don't want him to die there. I'd rather see him win a championship. Or he continues to put up 1,000-plus rushing and receiving seasons, putting the team on his back, but just never goes anywhere.
Yeah, I'm concerned. I have a few different things I want to say about this. I'm concerned that we're watching, and a lot of people are going to hate this reference, but I feel like we're watching Calvin Johnson, like somebody that is potentially one of the best ever to play his position, and he's at a horrible organization currently, who I think has absolutely no shot at anything this year, and not anytime in the near future either. And I just get scared watching somebody like this who's in their prime and they're playing on the best. In my opinion, I think he's the best in the NFL right now. I think he's already solidified as one of the best ever in terms of pure talent. But it's really scary to see him sign a 4-year, $64 million contract there with Carolina because he's not going anywhere. I don't think that it's necessarily the wrong move though. If you were to put him into an explosive offense like let's say like Kansas City, like obviously they don't have the cap for that. We're not going into that, but I just don't think he would have the same numbers and the same usage as he does where he is because they have to ride on him. So I think that there is some give and take there, but it's just really, really unsettling to see somebody of that talent at a spot like that. Because I mean, that's almost as bad as my Lions. I
understand it though. I understand wanting to stay loyal to where you started. But for me, this is what I compare it to. I compare this to having a young team, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, now Christian McCaffrey, a bunch of weapons, just nobody to really throw it to you. I mean, you had one point last year where you had Will Greer in at quarterback, which was kind of disgusting to watch. And, I would compare this to Matt Forte of the Bears, having an incredible run of years and then going to the Jets and dying.
Yeah, no, I feel
that's something that could happen with him is he goes to a team and if he doesn't go to a good team, he's going to die. I mean, you go to the Jets, you
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
That's what happens. I'm not gonna say that
Le'Veon.
yeah, Le'Veon, Chris Johnson. He was on the
Yeah.
Titans. He was a dog and career died. So for me,
Yep.
I would love to see if Teddy Bridgewater is legit and he put on the same performance that he did in New Orleans when Drew Brees was injured. This could be a fun team to watch. Very pocket quarterback, very dumped down to Christian McCaffrey-esque. He's just a very by-the-book quarterback. If he pulls it out, I think it could be interesting to watch, and they could be somewhat of a contender in a shitty division.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm obviously pretty high on Tampa. I think New Orleans wins the division, and I think if anybody gets it, it's got to be Tampa or the Falcons. I mean, you have Todd Gurley now with the Falcons, who already have Julio, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley. Don't like them getting rid of Austin Hooper. We'll talk about that later. But I also think Tampa Bay is definitely the next best contender. I just don't see how Carolina doesn't finish last in the division unless the Falcons are last. I don't see Tampa Bay finishing last in the division with Tom, Chris God, Mike Evans, etc. But it's a very tricky spot though, because I am definitely a believer that Teddy Bridgewater will actually help McCaffrey produce more numbers, but winning games is what matters, and I don't think that he's going to be able to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina didn't have the best defense last year. They were easily picked apart by slot wide receivers.
James Bradbury is not what he used to be either.
No,
they were getting exposed by wide receiver ones, especially Julio. I think Julio had really good numbers against Bradbury, or really bad. I can't remember, but I think they were really good.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey won them the games that they won. I mean, he had multiple 200-plus rushing yard games, multiple 3-touchdown games, multiple 100 receiving yard games. He literally was the entire offense.
It looks like a high school running back when they put up 250 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then in reality, that's pro level. Yeah, it's insane.
If they can get some relief, because you know the talent in DJ Moore, you know the talent in Curtis Samuel. I mean, they're up and coming. We saw DJ Moore priced up in the 7K ranges last year when he went on a hot streak. So this could be fun to watch. It could not be. For now, I'm going to say that I'm okay with the extension, but if this year goes the way that I think it's going to go, I think it's a bad move.
Yeah, it's definitely a little sketch in terms of winning something, but hey, he's getting paid. He's the highest paid running back, I believe, annually. Fantasy-wise, it's pretty sexy. So
fantasy-wise, it's a great move because we're going to enjoy reaping the benefits of a shitty offense being just Christian McCaffrey being the focal point of everything. You might as well play tight end too, you know? Like, so, I mean, I mean, that was super interesting to me. I think this is an interesting move. We got to see how the year pans out. New segment here. Let's run it real quick. I want to get the comments and everybody. Polls on Twitter. Incoming a little bit of NFL game here. Called Underrated. On the topic of running backs, I'm going to ask Walker. I'm going to give mine as well. Put up a poll on Twitter. Go ahead and vote. And if you can somehow persuade me that mine isn't the most underrated, I'll give you $20. Walker, most underrated running back in the NFL. Go.
The most underrated running back in the NFL outside of Kerryon Johnson.
Oh, my God.
Other than Kerryon Johnson, I would say the most underrated running back in the league. And it's hard to say this because he might not be as underrated as some. It's pretty split, I feel like. But I really think that that Leonard Fournette is in for a bounce back this year. After a tough season last year. Yeah, I think after he's really, really fallen off a lot of people's radars. And after last season, a tough one, I think that with Gardner Minshew, they're under the gun this year and kind of getting more of a feel for where they're at. It's going to be Fournette for me. It's between him and Marlon Mack. I'm just a huge Marlon Mack stan. I think Marlon Mack is just that guy, but it's hard to call him underrated after what he did last year. So I wanted to lean towards Fournette, who's coming off of a really downhill year.
Minshew loved Fournette, so I expect him to get a ton of volume. For me, I was torn between two. My runner-up is Joe Mixon. I think it's going to be an interesting year if Burrow does go to the Bengals, which I know he doesn't want to. But if he does go to the Bengals, I think running that offense will be a little interesting. But for me, most underrated and due in for a top 5 fantasy point running back year is Austin Eckler. 100%.
Who is it?
Austin Eckler.
Okay. I'm okay with
Gordon, without being the only running back there, without Phillip Rivers, everything. just going to be flowing through Austin Eckler. I do not think anybody can tell me otherwise that Austin Eckler is going to have a top 5 year as far as yards rushed and touchdowns.
I'll be drafting Justin Jackson in the 9th round.
Oh, my God. Don't even keep me like that. So we're going to put up a poll on Twitter. Either you agree with me or you agree with Walker. Who's the most underrated running back in the league, Leonard Fournette or Austin Eckler? That should be it for us right now. Super thankful for all of you guys showing some love on the video. Like I said, we are the #1 coolest fantasy sports podcast out there with the 2 handsomest casters. I mean, that's easily for sure. So with that being said, stay safe out there, everybody. We will see you for episode 6 in a few days. Got some more stuff to talk about. We'll do another Guess Who on the next episode as well. Give out some more cash to everybody out there. Stay safe and peace out.
Peace out.